know, my name is David Strzok. I was nominated the chairperson of this board when I missed a meeting a while back, but I try to run the meeting. Why don't we introduce ourselves just so everybody knows who we're talking to?
I'm Joe Pierce. I think I know everybody. Anyway.
I'm Nick Lawrence. I became secretary when I missed the meeting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was at the meeting.
Yeah.
I just born from North Baldwin.
So we're 4 out of, and Glenn
Reynolds.
also a board member, or alternate, I can't remember. We treat everybody the same as far as I'm concerned. If it comes down to like a voting dispute, then it becomes an issue. But we have 5 members of the board, 2 alternates, and so we're missing a couple people. Sometimes we have scheduling issues, but anyways, so we're the Baldwin Planning Board, and I thought, we've had some discussion in town, not just among us, but kind of around us too, and at Selectmen's meeting, regarding, how we are conducting ourselves and whether or not the land use ordinance is working, whether or not we as a board are working. And so I thought it made sense, and I think everybody on the board thought it made sense to put out an invitation for people to come and have a discussion to see if there were strong feelings about what we were doing right, wrong, the ordinance, if we needed to make changes. And so, thank you. If you came for that reason, you may have all come for some other reason. But if you came for that reason, I appreciate it. The board appreciate it. I'm hoping this is a learning experience for us to understand what people who don't sit in this room every second Thursday think. What we typically do in our meetings is the first thing we do is kind of a legal issue, I think, is to talk about the draft minutes of the prior meeting, and if they're acceptable, then to approve them. Our board practice is to distribute the minutes via email before we get in here, so everybody can read them on the board, and we send them to. Who do we send them to? We send them to somebody at the town office too. Danielle, yeah. And then since we've already read them, we discuss them, and if we're okay with them, we approve them, and then they're posted on the internet. So I don't know if any of you have been to the website, the Town of Baldwin website, but all of our minutes for the past 3 or 4 years are on the website, just so you know. So with that, does anybody have a motion with regard to the prior minutes?
I move we accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
All right. Any discussion about those?
I wasn't there, so.
Okay.
Just read them, like, I read them a little bit before, but yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Sorry, I guess.
Any issue on your end? Okay. All those in favor of accepting the minutes as presented? Good? All right. So those are all presented. We do an agenda. I'm kind of explaining things as we go, so people kind of know what's the process.
People here.
It's rare, I'll give you that. We usually have an agenda, and one thing we've been doing, and I think the selectmen have been doing too, to be more transparent, is to get things on the internet. And so we try to do it by Monday before our Thursday meetings. We submit the agenda to the town office, and they put it up on the internet. So if you're curious what we're going to talk about on the Thursday, it's usually posted on the town office website on the Monday before our meeting. That's not to say we can't talk about other things. We're here every Thursday, so if people drop in to want to talk, 2 Thursdays a month, sorry, every other Thursday, yeah, essentially 2, yeah. The second, fourth Thursday of every month. So if people come in here and ask questions, we'll talk to them. We're not gonna say absolutely not. But if it's a big project, we say, why don't you come back at the next meeting so we can devote some time to it, so.
And we wanna have people aware as early as possible if we're gonna discuss something. We may
Right.
discuss things, but
Right.
we try not to unless.
Right.
And then the video too.
And then, yeah, just for transparency, the, behind you is a video, camera, and it's also audio. So, within, about 6 months ago, 8 months ago? About 8 months ago, maybe a little bit longer, the town invested in video cameras in both the selectmen, meetings and in, these meetings. And, usually anywhere between a week and 10 days after the meeting, a video of the meeting is posted online as well. Like there's a YouTube link on the website. So that's another way that I think actually quite a few people. I check the hits every once in a while.
I say if you just look for what's trending on YouTube, I think.
Yeah. Justin Bieber, and then but no, it's another way that we're trying to get information to folks, because it's not easy to show up here on a 7 o'clock on a Thursday. So, anyways, the second item on the agenda is a discussion about the Baldwin Land Use Ordinance. I assume most of you are here for that. Head shaking, yes, no, yes. All right. So we can do this a couple different ways. I didn't really have any preconceived notions of what we were going to do. One thing that I find that is confusing is the different roles that people have in the town with regard to the ordinance. Like there's really 3 different people that deal with the ordinance, or 3 different bodies. So we're the planning board, and our job, you guys jump in. I'll do this quick, so our job is to listen to conditional use permit applications, discuss those, and if we can get to an agreement, approve those for people who want to do things. We also help interpret the land use ordinance if people have questions. But our job is really just that. The other entity that's involved in the land use ordinance is the code enforcement officer. This gentleman over here, Wes Sutherland. He's the enforcement arm of the town. So if somebody's violating the ordinance, it's his job to go find that violation and to notify them and work with them to get back in compliance. He also issues building permits, other permits with regard to plumbing or other things. Any other major issues that you do that?
You covered it pretty well, and first part, you did very well in that if there's a violation, I have the authority to identify the violation, but then work with the landowner to try to resolve it and bring it back in line.
Right, and that may be sending them to us, it may be working with them on other things. He, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, is an employee of the selectmen or the town. And so the selectmen hire the code enforcement officer, and they're his supervisor, so to speak. And so the selectmen are also the enforcement arm. So if somebody says to Wes, no, I don't care. You know, I'm not going to do what you're asking or telling me. I don't care if I'm violating the ordinance. It's the selectmen's job to decide whether or not they need to do more than what the code enforcement officer can do, like take them to court, something like that, or have lawyers talk to lawyers. That's the selectmen's job, generally speaking, amongst other things. Anything else that kind of big picture stuff that you guys do with the ordinance, is that?
We work with lawyers a lot.
Right.
We have to.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And the last people who touch the ordinance is the town. So the code enforcement officer, the selectmen, and the planning board have no authority to make up the ordinance. Like we can't change the ordinance. That's the town's responsibility. what we do is if we think there needs to be a change, which is one of the reasons we're talking today, if we think there does need to be a change, we can suggest changes to the town, and then the town votes yes or no. Typically, the town is proven to be independent, and they say no if they don't believe it's the right thing to do. They say yes if they think it's the right thing to do. The town are the ones who create the ordinance. We don't create the ordinance, code enforcement officer doesn't. And I think there's been a confusion of those different roles, so I thought it was helpful to kind of put it out there. So, with that, what do you guys want to talk about? I didn't come here thinking that there was a certain thing we were going to talk about. Sure, yeah.
I just wanted to add one thing, because there's a misperception of what we do. We have never, ever turned down a conditional use permit. Although I have heard people say, oh, they threw that one out, they threw that one out. We have never thrown anybody out. We have never voted a conditional use permit down.
One example, I guess, would be the car dealer down across from Whistle Stop.
Yep.
We had a couple gentlemen come to us 6 months ago
I've
say.
heard otherwise.
That's why I wanted to say.
Well, let's talk about that. So,
Yeah.
are there specific?
The dance floor, they won't allow him to put a store or anything in there.
So, I've been on the board for 12 years or so. I don't remember, I've been on the board. Is Dansmore ever coming to us, other than asking about an apartment underneath or above?
There is one.
No, yeah. I don't remember a store.
I don't remember that either.
Well, it's right for the Portsmouth Hall.
No, that's why.
So who's the they? Who is the they that won't allow it?
It's him himself.
No, I mean, you say they won't allow it, do you mean the planning board?
Yeah, the planning board.
Okay.
Okay, he never came here.
He's
to ask
never
for a
come to
store.
us.
We're the horse's
Has
mouth,
anybody ever
too.
asked you?
Nope.
Has anybody asked the selectmen that you guys know of?
Said he wanted to put a store or have a liquor license there.
But you know what happens a lot of times, and this is what I was just trying to explain when I was talking about the dealership down at the thing. We had 2 gentlemen come to us, ask for a CUP, conditional use permit. They were from Rhode Island or something.
Yeah.
They were gonna come up here, they were gonna open it up. And then they realized how much it costs to do all that. And then they stopped. They didn't do anything further. We had another gentleman that came to us, and he's got a conditional use permit, and he's getting ready to start up his business. So when a lot of people say, oh, they won't let me do it, it has a lot of time has to do with the cost involved in starting that business, not.
I think it's cost with all of this stuff.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, the process. Let's talk about the process. Maybe that's helpful. So the process that we have in town is typically somebody comes here and sits right where you folks are and says, "Hey, I want to build a merry-go-round in North Baldwin." The person may or may not have talked to Wes beforehand, but they say, is there any rules against merry-go-rounds? And you say, well, no. Let's look at the book to see if there's any concerns. And we talk about it, and then they fill out a document called a conditional use permit application. And Wes has like the forms, they fill it out. And there's a bunch of questions, they're like, 5 pages?
Just about.
5 pages. And they ask questions based on what's in the ordinance. The person gives us the application with some money. How much money is it?
$150.
$150. And then we go through it and say, well, here are some concerns we have. You're gonna have bright lights on this merry-go-round. You got neighbors right next door. Is there any way we can get the lights so they shine inwards rather than out at your neighbors? Is there some noise concerns? Is there parking? We kind of go through what are the basics. And as Joe said, we always have reached agreement with people saying, you can do it. Here are some basic things to respect your neighbor's property and follow the ordinance. And then we issue them a conditional use permit, and they get to go do it for as long as they wanna do it.
And actually, once they get the conditional use permit, that piece of property is allowed to have a merry-go-round for the rest of the time, because the permit goes with the property, it doesn't go with the person that applies for it.
Unless it goes 2 years without a merry-go-round.
Right, if they stop doing the merry-go-round for 2 years, they lose the permit. It's like a sunset clause. And Wes's job is to make sure that they follow all the rules that we agreed to in that conditional use permit. So, I say all that because we, as long as I've been on the board, never got that application for the dance floor to run the store.
I don't know if he had an application or not, but he said they would let him do it.
Yeah.
That's all I know.
Well, I'd love the opportunity to look at an application and, I mean, I don't know the answer, whether it's good or bad.
And take it one step further to what Matt said about the two fellows from Rhode Island who wanted to sell cars. They had their thunder in line. They didn't wanna do any car repairs. They planned to sub it out to the local garages and everything like that. What killed it was the state said you have to inspect your cars before you sell them, therefore you need a lift. They didn't wanna do a lift.
There you go.
Cost of all. State that
I didn't even know that.
I remember one year,
It had to be an inspection station. It had to be an inspection station, in other words.
I guess.
I think so, yeah.
Inspection station.
we had one year where every applicant, and I don't know how many we had 8 in big year, you know. And one year, every single applicant, we said, have you gone and talked to your neighbors? You know, because what we are is kind of a buffer there between people who want to do something and their neighbors. Because we can make it so neighbors don't fight. We can ask people. We can try. I mean, you just go and talk to your neighbors and ask them, rather than have them arrive here all upset, which we've seen happen, and leave the meeting like, oh, that's what you're gonna do? Oh, that's great. You know, so it's kind of like a calming thing to have a board that you have to go to. And if you want to put up a pellet plant, that you have to do something to screen off your pellet plant from the neighbors.
I was gonna ask you, whatever, oh my goodness, what happened to
So,
the woods? That was messed up.
So they had a conditional use permit, and the conditional use permit lasts for 2 years if you don't do anything. But by the end of 2 years, you have to have made some progress. And since they haven't done anything as of September, they're done.
No, I thought they came back before us.
They came back one time,
right.
but then another 2 years went by.
No, but they were here last year.
Yeah, they were here last
They
year.
renewed the CUP last year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So right now, they have a CUP that will last.
so they came back and it got
They
registered.
had John Sacco and their plant.
They haven't, their money, their investment people, they built, I mean, I'm
Yeah, so
hearsay.
outside
They have
of,
another one in Sanford.
so they have a permit to do it here with, whatever rules we agreed to. But they actually decided,
Just didn't follow through on it.
right,
Not yet.
for, I mean, we don't ask why. People probably did it for their own financial interest. They probably had closer resources. They probably were able to partner with some people in that area that we don't have necessarily. But they were told yes, by us.
I think they renewed.
And then they came back and we had another
They
public
renewed it
hearing
at
and
least
reopened the
twice
permit and
since
looked
the
at
original.
it.
So they are able to break ground tomorrow if they wanted to. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. They have a permit that lasts until I think sometime next year.
Yeah.
And then we either need to renew it again or it just goes away.
So what else do we have? Well, that's great. That's a great issue. I appreciate you bringing that up. So everybody came for a reason. So you sit on your hands too long.
No, I'm off mine. How often is the planning, the land use ordinance revisited as a document? Is it done every 10 years? Is it done when it needs to be done?
Right.
How is that determined?
Great question. So there's a couple of documents. There's the land use ordinance, there's the subdivision ordinance, which is a different document. And then there's the, shoreland zoning ordinance, I guess it's called.
Yep.
And then there's a fourth document called the comprehensive plan. So they all kind of interact. So the comprehensive plan is this document that the state has to have, or the town has to have, but mandated by the state, that says, what do we want our guiding principles to be as a town? And it's 100+ pages document. It talks about our resources, and I'm not even gonna try to summarize it because it's impossible, but that was done many, many years ago. 80s?
1990, 89,
89, 90, yes. So that's probably well overdue to be revisited. But it's a major undertaking, and
Is that one on,
I don't think it's online, no. We probably should put it online, actually. And then there's the land use ordinance, which was adopted in the 70s originally, and over time it's been changed. I'd say probably 15, 20 times there have been changes to it. And typically the changes are in response to some issue in the town.
The last change that I have documented was March 10th, 2018.
And that was to change some of the fees, because the fees were 30 years old, and so we updated some of the fees. The town voted on it, of course. And you know, for a while in the 2006 timeframe, there was a large fear that the housing in town would multiply exponentially beyond what we could handle as a town. And so we put some restrictions as a town, we put some restrictions about how many new houses there could be built in any given year. It's called a growth permit ordinance. We've never even come close to the cap, just so everybody's clear. Never even close. This was substantial growth, you know, substantial growth came into town. Never even come close to that cap. But those were some of the things that have been changed over time. The subdivision ordinance deals with when somebody wants to build more than one or two houses on a piece of property, or divide a piece of property multiple times, and there's rules about that. Shoreline zoning deals with bodies of water. What are the rules around bodies of water? The state requires us to have this it's a little more complex than that, but essentially the state requires us to have this ordinance. It's a little more complex, but
we just revisited that in totality.
Yeah. We hired an expert to help us bring that up to date to match what the state law reflects. I think it was last year. Yeah.
And then the town voted on that too, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And what we do is we every year, right about now, look around at each other and talk to the selectman and the CEO and say, does anything need to be changed? Are there any major issues out there that the code is not, or the ordinance is not keeping up with, that we need to bring to the town to say, hey, we think this might be a good change, what do you think? We haven't gone through that process this year, so I'm not sure what we'll recommend, if anything, in March. Everything has to be done at a town meeting. We always try to do it at the annual town meeting versus a special town meeting, because the 10 to 20 people who show up for a special town meeting we don't think that's necessarily fair. At a town meeting, you get 100 or so, and that's a better representation. So it's a document that changes over time, but not a lot. I mean, it hasn't changed a lot. It's changed a little incrementally over time.
Okay, can I add, Dave mentioned about the shoreline ordinance and the subdivision ordinance. That is basically handed down from the state. They control it. You know, all our ordinances is not ad lib. There's guidance to it. And if we tweak it and customize customize it to fit our needs and our geography, we can change something in, but it has to equal the severity or be more restrictive, not less. So it's really the state that controls it, and we're just carrying it out.
In the shoreline
And subdivision.
and subdivision to a certain extent, yeah. And both of those are online, under ordinances, on the town website. Yeah. Anything you guys want to say on that? I mean, that's.
They were on the head so far.
Okay. So far. I love it. He's like, yeah, oh, so far. Anything, did that answer?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Seriously, you came.
How come the population of the school enrollment is going down?
That's a tough one, I don't know.
Huh? Because you're not letting anybody in? Or what is it?
Well, we've never hit the
No,
cap.
no,
Well, I mean, it's, people are moving out this way
Yeah.
more all the time.
Something like that, as well as starting a business, is controlled by the climate of the real estate, how tight or how free are the banks with money, and how prepared are the entrepreneurs in taking on the job, and are they ready for it, and have the financial
As
ability.
far as school.
It has nothing to do with the ordinance of
Right.
you can't come out here and move it
Can
remote.
you believe it, Marvin? We've got 2 spec houses in Baldwin.
What?
Spec houses. We've got 2 of them.
Yeah,
I never thought I'd see a day people build a house in Baldwin on spec.
that's just from across the road, that's fact.
I don't know, I think it is, do you know? Three, that one, down here in East Baldwin. Yeah.
So, Wes, Wes is on the school board. I mean, Wes, you know, over the past, 10 years, enrollment's gone down by almost 200 people,
That's right.
200 kids. Has the school board looked at why that enrollment's been dropping?
Because there's no business out this way.
I don't think it has anything to do with business, I really don't, I don't think so.
No business.
I can tell you what I think, I can tell you what my opinion is on it.
I don't think so, and the reason, and I don't think looking at the reason why would cure it, it's people, either people are young families are moving out of town where there's more jobs somewhere else, or more elderly people moving in that don't have children.
What do you think, Sam?
My opinion on it is a couple things, so basically what he had said. There's a lot of people in the town that have kids that have graduated and gone on, like me. I mean, my kids are in middle school and high school.
If there was business here, they'd stay here.
But you can't just expect businesses
You can't
to
argue
show up.
that.
I can argue
Business
that.
will
I can totally
hire.
argue that. It's a logistics. I mean, think
You're on
about.
you're correct, you're on a touchy subject.
100%.
Kids graduate, do they stay here? No.
Of course
They
they
go
don't.
to the big
Because
city
there's
where.
nothing to keep them here.
You're right.
You can't argue that point.
But it's
I don't
nobody,
wanna
it's nobody in
argue,
this
but
room's
there's
fault.
something I saw
Anybody else
myself
agree or disagree?
Yeah, I agree
this
100%.
morning, or yesterday afternoon, I guess. The biggest school bus we own was going to Hiram. They might have had 6 kids on it. Why can't you get smaller buses to haul smaller population?
The bus transportation
I
is
would
a,
think that would save a little money.
the transportation is a subcontract.
The
Schools
subcontract
don't
would
own
be
the
less.
buses,
They could sell it up for less
Okay,
money.
they've control.
I've got no control. I don't know where you are. I didn't show up.
So we should be talking.
So Matthew wants to finish what he was saying.
It sounds like common sense, but the reality is there's a bunch of different reasons, and I'll tell you a great way where you can increase the population of children going to school here is if we had a school that was local, because think about it, when people buy houses or build houses, it's usually about the time they're having kids, and the problem being is there's no school in town.
Why did they keep this one?
Oh, believe me, I fought myself. I was on the school board and I fought to keep the school.
Right.
I
Yeah.
voted against it too.
Yeah, I was on the school board before he was.
I used to drive school bus.
But there's nobody in this room that is responsible or at fault for that. But my point is that's when people move into town.
It's stupid when we have to buy your own school back.
Yeah.
We got a good deal on the school, I can tell you that, but.
Well, we're not gonna argue that
Yeah.
point, I'm not gonna argue that point. But I think Marvin, I think part of the concern is I feel like you're saying that we're somehow responsible for not.
No.
Oh, okay, that's good, that's helpful to hear, because, I mean, that's helpful to hear, it is.
You're not the town officials, I mean,
Well, we are.
you're involved, yes,
Right,
but I'm not blaming it on you guys.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
No,
common,
I do.
As far as,
it's just common sense, when you
One
own a
thing-
school, it's all bought and paid for, then you have to turn around and buy it back.
All over Maine, the small towns are dying.
Yeah, but what's this?
One thing I've heard in this town,
All emigrating into Portland, where they can't buy a house or rent an apartment. But all over Maine, it's not just Baldwin, all over Maine.
In any town that doesn't have a church or a store
I'd love to talk, yeah.
or a post office isn't gonna last.
Yeah.
And Hiram is the same way. I come from Hiram, that's where I was born and grew up. And that used to have at least 6 stores
6 stores.
at a time.
East Hiram, I remember when I was a kid, it was one of the places to hang out because they had the ice rink over there. I remember that.
Another thing, they took the name East away, it's no longer East Hiram.
Yeah.
And I asked Kenny Kimball the other day, what happened to the East? Hiram East of the post office.
Yeah, you lose the post office, you lose the.
And the only thing West Baldwin's got is the post office.
Lost the church.
They do have a church too.
North Baldwin, it used to be North Baldwin, now we lost
You're
the
not
north.
even a post office.
I know.
You got any street
Well,
lights?
who's gonna buy to come in?
But look,
Go ahead.
the point, my other opinion on the whole thing, I've heard for as long as my grandfather was a selectman, as long as, we need more businesses in town, we need more businesses in town. You know, we gotta get more businesses, why can't we get more businesses? Well, there's two kinds of businesses in my opinion, the service-based businesses, and there's manufacturing, that type of businesses. Well, nobody's gonna come out here to manufacture anything unless they are emotionally attached to this area. Because it's more expensive it might not be more expensive to buy a piece of property in Baldwin, but it's gonna be more expensive to get materials and, move stuff in, move stuff out, that type of thing. Whereas other areas already have buildings that are empty that they wanna fill up, so it makes more sense to do stuff, and I'd love to see more businesses in town. The other side of businesses is service-based businesses, stores and things that people will use when they're home, because this is kind of a bedroom community. There's not a lot of businesses that people work at, but we need more people to attract businesses that could actually be able to run in a service-based type thing, like a store. There's not enough people around here to,
Never know.
well, I mean, it's 6 to 1, half dozen the other.
How many people in town now? 1,200?
1,530.
Holy moly.
So we
Good
have
job,
to-
Baldwin.
Another ordinance,
That's all 3 of them, though.
Anybody else have something to say?
Well, I was just wondering, what's allowed and isn't allowed in a rurally zoned area? I think a lot of people have kind of a question on their minds.
Yeah.
In a rural area, what do you allow and what is absolutely not allowed by the existing ordinance?
Yeah, and it's right in here, I mean, it's in the ordinance, and, there are prohibited uses, you can't put
Right.
Not a merry-go-round.
I don't know why I said that, I just.
There it is. What's permitted, I mean, it's right here.
It seems like there's confusion as to what the law actually says, and I don't know it. I'll let you read it.
This section, and then village commercial residential.
It's pretty wide open. Most things are permitted. Very few things are prohibited. If they're permitted, that doesn't mean that they're permitted without any restriction. Many things require a conditional use permit. So there's some things you can do, you can, correct me if I'm wrong, but you could have a garden and sell produce off, your front lawn. you don't need a permit for that. That's a home occupation. If you wanted to have a warehouse and, you know, you have a barn and you wanna rent space like a warehouse, you probably need a conditional use permit. That's not just a straight permitted use.
It just can't be over 40,000 square feet in the rural district.
Yeah, it has to.
Just buildings or?
No, maximum commercial floor area can't exceed 40,000 square.
Which is pretty big.
That's pretty big, yeah.
And
And you can't stay in a motor vehicle for more than 7 months out of a year in the rural district. RV, yeah.
So it's pretty wide open, I mean,
It is.
and is there any fine tuning on any one issue that needs to happen where someone can then take advantage of how loose it is?
Well, we try to work, I mean, yes. But we try to work with people to, if they want to do a use, we try to work with them based on the ordinance to not negatively impact the neighbors. So there are things like lighting pollution. So you can't have lights that shine on your neighbor's property. And it seems kind of silly, but if you buy a piece of property and somebody comes in next to you and just shines lights on your property, you're devaluing your neighbor's property. So we work with people to have those types of restrictions. But yeah, it's pretty broad. I mean,
Noise, traffic?
There is no
so
noise ordinance.
so there's no noise ordinance, but noise pollution is something that we can work with people on. And we often ask people for noise studies to say, what's the noise gonna be at the edge of your property line when you start doing
Because
something?
when we look at a permit, the ordinance lays out for us the things that we have to consider. So noise and traffic are two of those things that we have to look at and have an answer to.
Parking's another big one. So if somebody has no ability to have parking, where do you think they're gonna park?
On the road.
On the road.
So is there a decibel level for noise or?
There isn't, but we ask for a noise study a lot of times because through the process, we can find out how loud it's gonna be and give that information to people in the public meeting or, you know, through the process basically. So we do ask for noise studies so that we have that documentation basically.
But there is no level that.
There's no
No
noise
particular
ordinance.
level.
No, our job would be easier if it were.
Yeah.
Right.
It gets subjective, you know.
But we find most people are willing to, so if you have a neighbor, you're doing some noisy activity and you have trees today, and if you leave those trees, the noise is gonna be significantly lower. If we say to the people, hey, leave the trees, don't cut them down, leave them, have that buffer, and your neighbors will appreciate it, they say, that's no problem. Or build an earthen berm to try to trap the noise onto your property. Most people are like, no problem, we want to be good neighbors. And so these are the things we talk about in the conditional use permit process to try to mitigate what may be some negative aspects of the process.
I don't know exactly what happened. I know when you guys were doing the pellet mill, you made some changes and it was because of noise. They changed the configuration of stuff, they added some.
Noise buffers?
Yeah, noise buffers. And so that was part of that process was they brought it in, said, what can we do to quiet it down? They changed things around, the plan, and then it got to a point where we thought it was acceptable amount. I wasn't on the board then, so.
Most people want to be good neighbors. I mean, most people don't want to come in and be bad neighbors. I didn't even think of that. Oh, okay, let me work with that.
You made a statement earlier saying that there's really nothing prohibited, but in fact, if it isn't listed as a permitted use or a conditional use, then it's not permitted.
But there's a lot of things that are allowed. That was my point.
Yeah.
Could I, back to Steve's question about what it is, what we allow and what we do when people apply. Section 8.3 of the standards for a conditional use permit go through what we look at. The size of the proposed use compared to surrounding uses, the intensity of the proposed use, the potential generation of noise, dust, odor, vibration, glare, smoke, litter, and other nuisances. Unusual physical characteristics of the site, including the size of the lot, shape of the lot, topography, soils, which may tend to aggravate adverse impacts upon surrounding properties. So we're told to pay attention to surrounding properties. The degree to which landscaping, fencing, and other design elements have been incorporated to mitigate adverse impacts on surrounding properties. Then we get into municipal or other facilities serving the proposed use will not be overburdened or hazards created because of inadequate facilities. So we have to look at traffic, ability of pedestrians to pass through the area, capacity of the street network. So you want to put a 1,000-lot subdivision in with only one entrance onto a town road, we'd have a problem, quite rightly. Capacity of storm drainage system to accommodate the proposed use, ability of the town to provide necessary fire protection. So again, if it's a massive project, we might just say, gosh, there's only so many Howard Burnells around. We can't put out a fire if you have a fire. So we've got a bunch of things we should be looking at. We're told specifically to look at.
Yes. Does that answer the
Yes.
question? And the ordinance governs, so if I say there's a lot of things, I may say that, but you gotta look at the ordinance. Your point's well taken. We follow the ordinance. Sometimes half the time we're just reading the ordinance to remember what it says, and I don't have it memorized by any means.
And you rely on the town attorney to, and if he tells you that this is not allowed, then you have to follow that, or?
Have to, probably should.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't think we've ever not followed his opinion.
Don't make much sense to spend $3,000-4,000 on an attorney.
That's right.
And not have you back you up.
Yeah, I think generally, we only ask for counsel when we're concerned that we don't have any idea what the answer is. Or if some other lawyer tells us the answer is different, then we have to go get a second, and we have to ask the town lawyer, which has happened. I mean, we just learned, we had the town attorney here 2 meetings ago, and we were always under the assumption that if we granted a conditional use permit, that it ran with the land, which it does, but that it ran with the land forever. So we were always concerned, some really nice person would come in. Freddie Minor would come in, and he wanted, we all like Freddie. He'd come in and want to do something, and we trust Freddie. He's a good guy. I mean, whether he is or not. But we trust him, and because he's a local guy that we know. We couldn't just give him a permit because he's a nice guy. We had to be concerned about the guy that Freddie may sell to, who may not be so nice, or the next person in line. So we were always concerned, what if, somebody got this property who wasn't as nice? And we just learned that we can put a time limit on a permit. We didn't know that. We can grant a permit for 5 years, and after 5 years, they have to come back. We had no idea. The town attorney told us we could do that. For me, it was amazing. I had no idea.
Lovely.
Yeah, lovely. It reduces the concern about the third or fourth person who may buy that property. So, I guess my point is that the town attorney educates us all the time. So, we learn stuff all the time. Other questions, comments, concerns?
Yeah, I guess I'm going to have to speak up. I understand well, because I've been to a lot of the planning board meetings and many of the selectmen's meetings, what the requirements are. What if you get a property that's being used for events that haven't been sanctioned by the town? What if that happens? What if there are fireworks at 9:30 at night and the fire department hasn't been notified? What if the noise is so loud that even with music and windows closed in the winter in a house, you can hear motors roaring? what happens when things like that go on without any sanction from the town? And how do we change that? And I'm obviously talking about what used to be considered a campground, now an event place for engines. And it's not that I'm against either camping or ATVs, it's just that it happens to be in my backyard. And it's not only the fact that that's happening there, but there's a lot more traffic on my road, with unlicensed ATVs, some motorcycles that have gone careening by at, probably only 35 miles an hour, but when you're between my barn and my house, it seems like it's 100. What happens when you have events like that happening, and what can we do to at least rein it in? Or Joe had mentioned maybe people that are planning things like this should talk to neighbors, get us all on board instead of blatantly doing them. What do you do? What could I do? I called Dwight last winter, no noise permit, there was nothing he could do. I said, well, you need to at least come over here and listen to this. And there was really no point, because what could he do as a selectman? What can you do as a planning board if someone doesn't come to you with plans for whatever property they may have? And it isn't just the campground, it could be Harriaga down Smith Road who's planning something else and hasn't been completely upfront or honest. What can we do about stuff like that?
Sure. Well, there's different answers for different parts of your question. I don't know, and I don't think we're gonna speak to any particular property, because it's not fair.
No, I'm not asking.
No, but I just say that, so nobody takes my answer and anybody else's on the board's answer as being specific to a property. I mean, I think so if somebody is in violation of the ordinance, the only thing that we really do is if they come before us with a request for a conditional use permit, there are provisions in the ordinance that say if somebody is in violation, current violation of the ordinance, their permit is supposed to be declined. And you can read what the ordinance, I mean, I'm not quoting the ordinance, but essentially if they're in current violation of the ordinance, they're not supposed to get a conditional use permit. So, I think it's 8.3, 8.2, something like that, 8.3, I think. So what do we do as a board? Well, we look to the selectmen and to the CEO and we say, is this applicant in violation? Because we don't get to determine whether they're in violation or not. That's not our job. And so we ask the enforcement body, are they in violation? And if the answer is no, they're not in violation, then our job is pretty clear. We march forward and assess the application. Now, those things may be informative as to how the application is addressed, but we go forward. We don't get to say, no, we're not going to talk to you. So then the other part is what the CEO may do and the selectmen may do, and they're the enforcement arm of the town. So that's outside of my purview, so they can answer if they want in a second. The last part is if it's a moving vehicle violation, then that's the police or the sheriff. That's not the town to necessarily patrol the public roads of whether or not a unlicensed vehicle or ATV is illegally driving on the road. That's not our job. I don't think it's their job. Maybe it's their job, but not to my knowledge. So that's how we view it, and it may sound like a little bit of a cop-out, but that's the power that we have, which isn't great. I don't know if you guys have noticed, we don't have a lot of power. But we do have the ability, if they're in current violation, to deny the application, or to wait until they're not in violation and then look at the application. So when we get an application, we often ask the CEO, and we know there's concerns, we ask, is this applicant currently in violation?
So does that mean that they can go ahead and do what they wanna do, and they're doing it, and then it's after the fact that you look at the application, after they've already started doing what they're doing, or do they have to apply first, then you accept it or not? I mean, I don't get the timeline here.
So in theory, they're supposed to come to us before they start anything as a general proposition. If they've already started it, the question is, are they in violation or not?
But if they haven't even applied for the permit,
Well, but see, that's not our job to determine whether they're in violation. So let's say it's an automobile shop and the person puts up a sign, they have cars on the lot and they may be doing some repairs. Now, are they in violation of the ordinance because they didn't come get a permit to run an automobile repair shop? Possibly. That's up to the code enforcement officer to make that determination. So, maybe they're just working on their cars. I don't know. That's up to the code enforcement officer to make that determination. So, I'm not answering your question. I get it. But because it's his job and their job to determine whether or not they're currently in violation of the ordinance.
But generally, people come to us before they start a business.
well, yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out here. So, yeah.
Every once in a while, they come after, and we typically say, please stop. Don't continue to do what you're doing. Come to us and talk it through, and we'll figure it out. Prior to recent times, it's never been a problem. Do you guys want to expand on that anymore, or not? I mean, it's up to you.
The examples were a little bit vague and not specific, so it's probably best not to tread on it.
Okay. You guys?
Agree with Rex.
Okay.
So if we are concerned about a violation, should that be reported to us? Is that where that needs to go?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And selectmen.
And the selectmen. And the best way to do it is to look at the ordinance and say, well, what are the things in the ordinance that need a permit? So you mentioned campground. Campground is something in the ordinance that requires a permit. So if somebody's operating a campground without a permit, then that may be a violation of the ordinance. I say may because it's not my job to, I get it, I understand I'm punting the issue, but it's not my job, so I don't want to, that's his job.
And these guys are a lot more available than we are. I mean, obviously you can see us at the store or something and talk to us or anyone or whatever, but you guys are here, you have certain hours that you're here, and these guys are always available.
I'm retired, I have a phone number around here quite a bit.
Yeah, actually, that's an interesting point. So we can only do business in this room on Thursdays, starting at 7 o'clock. I enjoy all these folks' company. I don't have barbecues with Nickel and see Nickel outside of this room. My loss, because he's a great guy, but we just don't. Yeah, well. And Joe, I mean, I see Joe once in a while, but probably as much as many of you.
We barbecue Joe?
No. I had tea once.
We'll talk after the meeting, though.
But we don't talk about, as a group, we don't talk about what, these issues outside of this room.
Is it whether three of us get together or counts as
a quorum? Yeah, so if a majority of us get together, 3 or more, we have to notice it in a public manner. So if we were all going to go to a barbecue together, technically we would have to notice that in the shopping guide saying we'd be at a barbecue.
That's the second and fourth Thursday of the month.
Second and fourth.
7 o'clock.
But that's really important to us. That's something that we strictly adhere to. We exchange emails, but only in terms of notice. And if there's anything of substance in those emails, we attach them to the minutes.
It's always the draft minutes we receive, it's the agendas we receive, and the only other emails that I ever get are, who's coming to the meeting, are we gonna get a quorum? And then people will respond, I'm gonna be there or I won't be there. That's the only email that I see.
Well, let me ask you this then, Dave, how do we go about getting a noise ordinance? Is that at town meeting, should that go on the agenda for our yearly meeting?
Well, it's something that we've discussed in the prior meetings. We've talked about whether or not, years ago, I believe, before my time, I looked at Joe, because I don't remember how long ago.
I got the old white beard.
Didn't we try, wasn't there a proposal? No?
I don't recall ever proposing a noise ordinance, other than talking
It
about
was
it.
a sign ordinance.
Sign
that got
ordinance,
shut
yeah,
down,
we got shut down.
We talked about it a while ago, and then we've recently talked about whether or not it makes sense to come back to it, because a lot of towns do have a noise, ordinance. The problem is, what do you set it at, and, you know.
Usually small towns like us will take other people's ordinances and they'll kind of, they'll copy that. I remember when we were talking about it last time, we were talking about Freiburg's ordinance for noise.
We have stacks of other ordinances.
Yeah, so,
Let's segue into that, I've got the material.
oh, yeah. I was just gonna say, Freiburg's ordinance was funny because it goes down through agricultural uses and all these different things. And basically, the last exemption in the noise ordinance is the Freiburg Fair. So they can make as much noise as they want to that week out of the year. And so that's kind of how it works. But we have looked at other towns' ordinances to see if that's something we want to do or not. Or if we want to bring to the public, or bring to the town to see if they want to.
I think at the last meeting, Joe was actually tasked with looking for some draft ordinances that we could just look at to consider. And the problem is, you don't want to stop people from logging, you don't want to stop them from doing a whole bunch of things. So it's, I think it's more complex than it might seem.
It's right down to your old saying, you want a piece of land, but you don't.
Yeah, yeah, how restrictive is the town gonna be?
And that's what happens,
You want a piece of land, you can't do nothing with it.
that's what happens when you pack us all closer and closer together, more and more people involved. That
More restrictions.
more restrictions because there's more people to get along with. You know?
Fences don't work sometimes.
Yeah.
What else? Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Do you want me to talk about this?
You can if you want, yeah.
So, the person who asked me, who told me the town needs a noise ordinance, I said, okay. He said, here's the stuff on noise ordinances. Okay. So I talked about it, and then I called him up and I said, well, I've talked to the selectmen, I've talked to the planning board about a noise ordinance, and I'd like your help. And he never returned my call. So that's using the universal, rule of if you suggest something, you volunteered to do it.
Right.
He decided he didn't volunteer to do it.
Okay.
But, I do have a bunch of stuff, names noise-related statutes, policies, and review standards, which I found very interesting because it talks about, the different state standards.
Oh, okay.
And, a technical assistance bulletin from Oxford County, Maine State Planning Office.
Is that something we should copy and attach to the minutes so we can read them?
I think that would be a great idea.
Okay, perfect. A lot of times what we do is we like to get the information out, give people a chance to read it, and then come back and talk it through, because we don't want to waste people's time by reading things at the meeting.
Can this be attached for your fancy or
Sure. I have a scanner.
I do too, but mine's a little older than yours.
Yeah.
I struggle with everything.
Oh, thank you, Jeff, I appreciate that. Sure. And we'll put that as an agenda item for the next meeting to talk about that. Anything else? Yeah.
Any ordinance that we have, that we change, the bottom line is you still have to be able to enforce it. And, it's great to write down ordinances and change, but if you can't practically enforce it, in other words, using the sheriff's department or some other entity, it's almost meaningless.
Well, it is for people that don't want to follow the ordinance.
Yeah.
Well, they've already been in here and told us they won't enforce our ordinances, because we don't have a police force.
The only thing we can do, if we hire one of those sheriffs
Yeah.
for $160,000 a year, then they'll enforce our ordinances.
Right.
But other than that, they're calling it low-hanging fruit.
Oh, I'm sure, cause I'm the,
And it's hard to enforce it also if you don't observe it. I mean, we live on 113, which is a major highway. When we first moved here, there wasn't the traffic that there is now. Now there's ungodly amounts of traffic. We could go to the end of our driveway, pull onto the street, hardly ever have to even wait for a car. Now sometimes 20 cars go by, we can't get out. But that's the nature of the beast. I mean, you buy the property, you have to expect that over time, if you stay there, things are gonna change. And when it comes to, noise ordinances, there's no noisier place than 113. They go by on motorcycles, they wait till they get just in front of our house and then, they do it with pickup trucks, the tractor trailer trucks go by, the jake brakes come on. I mean, it's life. You accept it, or if you don't like it, you find a place that's quieter. And I don't, mean that everybody has to put up with harassing noise or anything like that. But I think there's gotta be some give and take, and I don't think that, yes, I own a piece of land, and yes, I would like to do what I wanna do with my land. But if it's gonna be adversely affecting my neighbors, then I've gotta think about that a little bit, And one of the big issues with me right now is the marijuana thing. The smell of marijuana makes me ill. And I worry all the time, is this guy gonna move in next door to me and plant marijuana and I gotta smell it? Because there's really nothing I can do about that. There's no smell ordinances, And so, you just have to kind of deal with it a little bit. You have to be a little bit, relaxed about some things. We have a neighbor up the road from us that likes to do fireworks. Sometimes I'm in bed at 10 o'clock, here comes the fireworks. But it's not an everyday thing, and you just kind of learn to live with it a little bit. Not necessarily that it's gonna happen every day, it doesn't. But you just kind of have to be a little bit, understanding with people. Everybody has their own lifestyle. Everybody wants to be happy in their life. They wanna, if this is what they enjoy, is doing fireworks on the weekend, once a month or whatever, they have a right. It's their property. So I think everybody just has to learn to work together, give a little bit, and just, don't get stressed out over the small stuff. Life is too short. And as far as traffic on the road goes, none of us can control that, the noise or any of it.
I agree with you, Connie, and I think you helped to make my point about the planning board being a place where people get to talk to each other and find out how to get along with each other, because if you aren't talking to each other, you can't find out how to get along.
Exactly.
And I've got a neighbor who likes to shoot. Sometimes I feel nervous when I'm out in the woods or in my fields or something. He's got what sound to me like automatic weapons. He also doesn't do it at 1 a.m. So I've never complained to him about it, never a problem, but because he doesn't do it all the time. He doesn't do it at 1 a.m. He doesn't do it at 4 a.m. It's like, oh, okay, that's what you want. So I agree with you, but that's what the planning board does. If you have a problem with marijuana smell and you don't want a 100-acre field of marijuana next to you, and you want an ordinance about it, you come to us and we'll figure out what we can do that helps you and deals with the other people.
If your neighbor comes to get a conditional use permit, we're gonna send you a letter as an abutter to let
Right,
you know there's a
and I understand the fact that people buy property, they pay taxes on it, they wanna be able to use it as they see fit. I understand that, but by the same token, I think people have to have a little bit of tolerance. I mean, I'm not gonna like smelling that marijuana, but I can keep my windows shut and I can do whatever to not have to smell it, at least while I'm in the house. When I go outside, that's a different story. So, but I mean, I think tolerance is the thing, and I think what you said about you guys being a buffer and trying to, get that in place is important. So I think all of us just need to step back, chill out, and be tolerant to some extent.
Sure. Thank you.
The good thing about marijuana growing nowadays I don't have anything to do with it, but I do heating and air conditioning. You would not believe how many row buildings there are that you drive by every day, even in this, not necessarily the town, but between here and Portland. I mean, there are so many businesses, buildings that are full of marijuana, but the way they grow it nowadays, it's not outside.
Well, they have, I know when I worked at the post office, I complained because I was having a lot of customers that would come in and the smell was awful. And when they leave, the smell doesn't go with them, it lingers, you know, and I'd be out there with my can of spray. So I asked one of our representatives, I said, what can be done about that? Can anything be done about that? He said, the only thing that can be done, and he checked into it for me, he said, the only thing that can be done is the landlord, the person who owns this building, can put in an air exchange system so that you don't have to, you know, smell that. He said, that's the only thing that can be done.
There you go.
Yep.
So I do.
Yeah. So.
You had a question?
I just wanted to say that, while it's important for us to be tolerant and accepting of differences and things like that, we also have the right to be respected.
Yes, we do.
And I think that would be my point right from the beginning of this whole thing. Thank you.
That's, yeah, I'd say since I've been a board member, that's been a big issue, and we've had board members quit right in the middle of a meeting just because the respect is totally lost, no respect at all, so. It's too bad, you know, it's been a rough, I wouldn't say a rough year, but at times it has been. And I've always, even way before I was a planning board member, everything was explained on the planning board, it seems like, you know, oh, this didn't happen, you know, the planning board wouldn't let them do it, you know, that's not, most of the time it's not the case. Like these guys have said, and these guys have been on the board for a long time, they've never said no to anyone. There's been a lot of people that stopped the process before they got the permit, for whatever reason, or they never even came to the planning board to begin with, and, you know, I'd like to see whoever owns the dance floor, if it's, what's his name, yeah, Joey Charles, he wants to come talk to us about it, he's more than welcome to.
I'm sure you got money enough to.
No, maybe, I mean, maybe,
Sure.
you know, maybe he's still interested, I mean, like.
It's still for sale anyway.
Yeah, so, you know, we'd love to see more businesses in town, the reality of it, you know, there's, nobody's beating down the door to open businesses. I mean, we get some, a few, but it's not like they're, you know, everybody wants to come to Baldwin to start a business.
Very much left involved with.
It's in a transition period.
Anybody else?
I've got more, but I won't do it tonight.
Actually, can we ask you how it's going? No, nothing fast and
You
simple.
say you didn't tell anybody, no?
Well, we're talking about.
Sometimes we don't have the power to say
Right,
that.
right. But I didn't know if you'd gone to get any information from, like, tax bills and that kind of thing. Oh, you did?
You didn't go back far enough.
I'll add a suggestion.
If you don't wanna talk about it in front of everybody, that's fine, I just was curious. I was curious.
Well,
That's a good thing to do, no?
okay.
I-
Whatever you want.
I think the planning board of the town, we've had complaints about not enough businesses or the opportunity to enter with businesses. I think the town, the planning board should look a little bit at the map and tweak it and make more village commercial area.
I agree with that.
I suggested, a number of years ago that we change the village commercial district to 1 acre zoning. And, it was rejected at the time.
Yep, that's something that.
So to kind of give folks perspective, the town is divided up into zones. And there's a map in the back. There's a map in the back that shows what the different zones are. There's highland, there's rural, there's village commercial.
There's what,
resource protection, and each one has its own rules. And the idea is that the village commercial is where you want to incentivize or to give looser zoning to businesses, because that's where you want your businesses. So smaller lots, more density, like you're trying to get businesses to build in the village commercial. There's a village commercial kind of around the whistle stop is one area. Down at the bottom of Route 5 by the bridge, by, where, Estes is, down there is village commercial. Over in West Baldwin, kind of, between the, post office and the old Grange is village commercial, that area. I think that's
There's
it.
one in
No,
North
on
Baldwin.
107 near, Rich Road.
Yeah.
So over on 107, which used to be North Baldwin, near where the post office used to be, Wiggins, Murch, and 107, that area is also village commercial. And the idea was to try to get people to build in those areas, businesses, to inspire businesses.
I don't think you could squeeze anything else in West Baldwin Village.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah, it looks like the village commercial goes up, like, where Max Garage used to be, up in that area too.
Yeah, good, it's actually, they're bigger than what I'm getting, but they have, each one has different rules. And I think what these folks are talking about is, let's loosen the rules even more for village commercial to give more opportunities. So the looser the rules, in theory, the, more opportunity there is to build. Joe was saying 1 acre lots versus 2 acre lots, so you have twice as many opportunities to build something on a 1 acre lot as on a 2 acre lot. So, that's something we've looked at too. In those same zones, there's been tax incentives, so there are pine tree zones too. Is that still a designation that the town uses, the pine tree? So the pine tree zoning is a special tax credit, or tax benefits if you have a certain number of employees. Again, they're grouped around the village commercial areas to try to get people to, put businesses in those areas. We rarely have somebody come to us and say, oh, is this pine tree, is this village commercial? That's rarely a question that's asked, which I guess surprises me a little bit. But
Yvonne had something.
yeah.
Okay, I have a question for you about village commercial, because that's where I'm at. You're gonna loosen the regulations for building in that area?
We're not gonna do anything, we may recommend it.
You may recommend it. What would be the problem with somebody who sees village commercial and then wants to put a residential home in the village commercial?
It would be well.
Is that a problem?
It isn't now, but in the future, we could change how much land you need in order to build a house. That is something we've talked about a little bit.
So you'd have more houses in a smaller area.
You would have more houses in the
So
smaller
like a
area.
village commercial right now is, I don't know, I'm asking 2 acres.
2 acres, yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's still 2 acres in village commercial, but we may change, the town may change it in the future, so you only need 1 acre.
So village commercial is still 2 acres?
Correct. Everything, yeah, for a resident.
Okay. What about a non-conforming lot that ends up inside village commercial?
Need more information.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Okay, there's a non-conforming lot in village commercial
Okay.
that
What's non-conforming about it?
it's very small, it's less than half an acre.
Okay.
And the person that owns it wants to put in a house, and he's stumbling because he has to go past the Tucker River Corridor Commission first. And, so if it's village commercial and he wants to put a house in there, there's nothing stopping him for doing that, and you don't not encourage somebody to put a residential building in village commercial. Whereas you classify it as village commercial because you want to encourage businesses to move in, not encourage residential buildings to move in.
If I may, this would not, I just threw a suggestion out.
Okay.
But that suggestion would not affect your situation whatsoever.
Okay.
Have no effect whatsoever.
Oh, okay.
Because, I was suggesting 1 acre, and you're looking at less than a half acre lot.
Yeah.
Wouldn't apply.
It doesn't come into play.
Yeah, it doesn't come into play.
Oh, okay.
And anyway, you get to vote on it and talk about it at town.
Oh, yeah, I know it, that's great.
I have
Not
a
us,
question.
all we can do is suggest.
I have a
Yeah.
question. So, when we make it, because I've only been on board for about a year, so I'm still learning too, but, so say we made a recommendation to do something like that. Is there times where, and obviously it'd be discussed with us before the town meeting, but there are times in this process where we get to hear from the public before the vote at the town meeting, not just at the town meeting?
We have to hold a public
You
hearing.
just want to know?
Right.
Okay,
Yes.
so there's one before it even would go to town meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I'm still learning too, Matt.
Yeah, we all are.
Great question.
Thank you.
Other things, other comments, selectmen, your voice needs to be heard. What do you wanna talk about? Businesses, the ordinance?
Myself personally, I'm against 1 acre lots. You know, to keep us, I like to have some land around me, a little lane. You know, I don't wanna have somebody jump right next to me. It isn't gonna happen to me, we own plenty of land. But it's just, I don't think we're ready for that, my own opinion.
We as a town, not you as a
Right.
family.
Well, you know, years ago, you know, we talk about business and stuff. Most of you people, I'm born and brought up here, so I've lived here 65 years. But you don't realize what a mill complex used to be where the whistle stop is now. That was probably 65, 70 men there. You've never seen Woods Mill when that was working, there was probably another 40 men in there.
They used to make clocks.
Yeah.
My uncle.
Well, that was our instrument after that.
Cornwall, something like that.
Then we had 3 trucking companies in town here. They're all gone now. We've lost all that. And I had a chance to talk to a state engineer, the Gorham bypass. The reason the Gorham bypass is swervy like it is for economic development. And if you look at it right now, you're gonna see places on the bypass that are for sale. And why they're for sale, it's just like Matt says, the proximity to Interstate 95 is closer. So, you know, you're gonna see that land get used up down there before they'll come out here.
And to your point, you just said, you had big truck, 2 or 3 big trucking companies that
3.
moved out. Those companies were here because there was, I call it emotional attachment, but the people that own those companies lived here, or they lived close by, and that's why they were here. And once they got changed hands, like the old Sylvania plant down in Standish, that was owned and ran by local people at one point. That got sold a couple, 3 times. Yeah, a couple, 3 times, and then it was gone. It didn't make sense, obviously, economically, it didn't make sense to have it even in Standish, but, that's why those things happen.
They went to the Dominican Republic.
Thailand and China,
I know a guy that went down there,
Yep.
is an engineer.
They went to Dominican when they were still running,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
then
they
everything
did.
went to China, so. But that's the point is, you know, if you have somebody in town like David, if he's a businessman and he wants to start a business making something, you know, he may put it in Baldwin because he's emotionally attached to it, but you're not just gonna see people, other than the price of land compared to other places, we really don't have that many benefits.
That's good building land in there.
When,
Not
not that I wouldn't love to
Yeah,
see
it's
more
all
businesses,
rock,
but,
there's no question about that,
yeah.
no question about that.
I wouldn't like to build a house.
Well, that was another
You
question.
told us. You told us that before.
I know, I'm about to get.
Is there any, who owns out behind you?
Yeah,
Is there any, I mean, I don't know, could
I've
they,
already called them.
they won't sell the piece? That's what was a thought I had after the meeting.
There's a shooting range down there now.
Yeah, they shoot down there all the time.
You know where that kid got killed there over in North Baldwin, shooting there? They stopped for quite a while, but the last few weekends I've heard them shooting again. Yeah.
Well, it's hunting season,
Right.
you gotta shoot somewhere.
Yeah.
Anything else we can talk about?
I got a question, what's the difference down by the river where Estes is, they can build a house on an half acre lot,
No,
and we can't on an acre and a half?
well, I'm not sure what you're talking, was it a non-conforming lot that existed prior to the, or, I don't think they can.
What are you talking, I don't know what you're, which.
So the discussion that was over here,
Yeah,
yeah.
Thanks.
So I'm not gonna wade into it too far. My understanding is you cannot build on a half-acre lot under the current ordinance unless there's an exception.
Okay, the ruling is this: the land was formed prior to March of 1975, therefore it's grandfathered, it doesn't have to be 2 acres. However, the attaching requirement is if it's non-conforming under that, if the setback dimensions can be met within the lot, then it can be built on. It's close.
And that's what you guys are trying to be able to establish.
He just admitted it, right there.
So you guys
Our
are,
lot was bought in 1969,
so what you guys are trying to
before the
establish.
ordinance went through.
Okay,
Wait, Wes.
okay.
So what you guys are trying to
Nobody's
establish
totally
with,
against it, so I don't.
what you guys are trying to establish with your property, my understanding is that it was a non-conforming lot before the date?
March 1975.
March 1975. And he was here before, and we talked about that would be your best bet to be able to build on less than 2 acres. If you could establish that you had a non-conforming lot before the ordinance came into existence, you may or may not be able to build on that, but if you could establish that. I don't know if you guys established that, but that's the issue. I think the parcel he's talking about was able to establish that they were a non-conforming lot before the ordinance came into effect, which is where you guys are trying to get to. I don't know if you've done it, but that's the same place.
It's me, that place has been there for 46 years. It hasn't bothered anybody. Most people don't even know it's there.
It sits up on the hill, right? Okay, because Brandon
No,
looked
it's
at
not
it.
bothering anybody, it's a separate piece of property.
The thing is I think what everybody's trying to say is, if you had separated those into two
I know.
lots
Yeah, but
back in,
who knew to do that many years ago?
I agree with you.
Ordinance was grandfather clause, and I asked you, what does grandfather clause mean?
It existed prior
Right.
to
If they had
March
been subdivided before
1975.
Well, that's.
then it would be
Well,
grandfathered
fine.
as a smaller lot.
Well, but that's what you're trying to prove. And then, so you're gonna try to prove that, he's gonna make a decision, and then you're gonna go to the Board of Appeals if you don't like his decision.
You just build a house down East Baldwin, on less than a quarter of an acre.
House in
Was that the one they
East Baldwin.
replaced? You mean it was a trailer?
Right in front of Keith Morris,
Or what?
Harris Road.
less than a quarter of an acre.
Same issue as the lot we're talking about now. It's non-conforming, but the setbacks can be met. It was a grandfathered lot.
It existed prior to March 1975. I'm not saying it's right, I'm just telling you that's where we're at.
I guess I'm sick, but I just don't understand why that isn't grandfather clause.
But it's not two lots, that's the problem.
Okay.
Well, it may or may not be, that's what they're trying to do, they're trying to establish it's two different lots that were non-conforming before the ordinance was put in place.
It's been there 46 years. Hasn't done a bit of harm to anybody. We pay taxes on that separate piece of property.
Which is exactly what I was telling you, like, if you guys can establish that, if you can't, he'll say no and you take it to the Board of Appeals.
Well, I gotta have time to go down to, I talked to Debbie the other day, and she said all her records for those years are in the library, so I gotta have time to go down there and look.
I think the Historical Society, not the library.
Hmm?
I think the Historical Society, not the library.
Well,
Well,
they would be in the library.
She
She's in the library.
Well,
Right now,
A technical issue of where the Historical
Same
Society.
building, right?
But I mean, that's,
Different
you
people
guys
to talk to.
are in the process of trying to establish that. You may or may not be able to do it, I don't know. And if he says no, then you have an appeal.
What if I went ahead and built the house? And I got a fine? What are you gonna do?
So typically when somebody builds a house they're not supposed
You
to,
can't make me tear it down, I know.
the court can, yes.
Well, but when you go to sell it, that's when you're gonna have a problem. So if you went and built a
But he doesn't
house,
care about that.
Well, I was
He's never
assuming-
selling it.
I thought you wanted to sell it, I thought that was the whole reason to do it. Oh, you wanna rent it?
No, I wanna live in it.
He wants to
Oh,
live
you
in it.
wanna live in a small house and sell your,
Sell the big one.
okay, well, that's when you're gonna run into the issue with the bank, because the bank's gonna look at the deeds, they're gonna, oh.
I hope he's gonna take me with him,
He was saying he wanted his own house.
You can say his own house.
Marvin, we're not the enforcement arm, so obviously, but you guys are doing exactly, there's a process, and you're in the middle of the process, and that process isn't done, as far as I know, and, you know, who knows where it's gonna lead?
Can I take it to the appeals board?
You have to first get his decision, and then you can, appeal it.
You have to have a negative decision in order to open the doors for appeal board.
What's left to be done before you do
He has
I
to
have
say
to say,
no.
I have to say no, he can't.
He's a negative.
Well, he's following the rules, though.
He's waiting for you to ask the question, and as we talked about last time, before you ask the question, you wanna see if you can get the proof that they're two pieces of property. If they're two pieces of property, his answer may surprise you.
We were told that all you gotta do is go see Debbie, and she would get in touch with L. St. Xavier, the appeals board.
That's not what we talked about.
That's not what we said.
Oh, everybody's told us.
We said go
something different.
go see Debbie, because I think we were talking about the tax bills, the two separate
And
tax.
eventually he would go see Al St. Xavier.
But,
Towards the end of this discovery process.
He's the Board of Appeals, right?
Yeah.
first is to
No,
try
he's
to
not
establish
playing
that you have two pieces of property, and then ask him for a decision. Once he makes a decision, if you don't like that decision, you go to the appeal court. That's what we talked about.
But I said,
That's what's under the ordinance.
Okay.
We're trying.
Here's his letter.
is that the negative decision? Is that what that is?
Yeah, he didn't go back far enough. Trailer, and she was paying taxes on it, was 1972, 73, something like that.
Just like it was a separate piece of property.
So is this a denial? I'm not gonna.
That was answering the question that came up in the meeting, and he kept on saying, but there have been separate taxes paid, and Debbie said the only separate tax was that she was paying was on the trailer itself, not the land.
Okay.
The
Now
land.
that's
It was the land
it
owned
was
by
earlier than that.
He owned all of them.
But you went back to a certain
We were
point.
being taxed two separate.
You went back,
Tax for the first.
you're saying you wanna go back farther?
They're supposed to go back, yeah, she moves up there probably 72, 73.
So it sounds like you're still looking for some additional documents.
Right.
I mean, I don't
Right.
I don't
She was
know.
paying taxes on the land and the trailer, and we were paying taxes on our house and our land. For the first 2 years.
Same thing.
So if he says that that's not sufficient to get grandfathered, then you would appeal it,
Yeah.
So
right?
is that enough?
He only went back to 98.
Is that enough for them to appeal, Wes?
So go Saturday morning, go down to the Historical Societies, Paul and Doug
Town
there,
records are still open at the library.
Okay.
and Doug Noble is down there on Saturday mornings,
Every other.
every other. So if it's the every or the other,
I-
go down in the basement, around back, like you go down the elevator.
Never been in the library.
Oh, okay.
I have, but I've always been upset.
I believe.
If you
I
give me
believe
a call,
this
I'll
is
take
the
you
answer,
down.
But we ought
Okay.
to sit down separate time. Now's not the time to dice this apart.
What's that?
It probably,
Now is
Well,
not
my
the
wife
time to
will.
dice
My
this
wife will.
I don't know.
apart.
He wants you to come back next Friday.
I'll sit down with you.
He's got one a month.
Friday. He's working.
I'll find out.
Actually, you're here tomorrow.
I'm here tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning if you
Yeah,
want. Okay. Cause I think that's the next step. You guys are in the process. I mean, I don't think there's a definitive answer yet. I think you're still working through it. I just like the fact you guys keep coming back.
Yeah, we get it.
I think you're enjoying that.
No, not really.
It's my blood
Definitely
pressure.
most fun.
Do you wanna say anything about businesses and the board and, I don't know, you don't have to.
I've had some recent inquiries that will appear before the board of review, probably in a month and a half or so.
Here,
Yeah,
yeah,
businesses are growing.
awesome, perfect.
We've had some people that are coming for CUPs, okay.
Perfect.
Any ideas, like what types of businesses?
Storage garages, solar panels.
Thanks.
Perfect. So, we still got some time. I mean, is there any questions you guys have that you're curious about? It's unfortunate we don't have some folks who are more vocal in town about our purported anti-business leanings. I wish they would have come because, I think the best way to try to work through this is to talk and to figure out what, if we're perceived as not being friendly to business, I think we need to work on that, and which is why we're doing this.
I've heard that.
Yeah, no,
The town is not friendly.
absolutely, and I guess we as a board don't feel that way. Is that true? Is that true?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And so if there's things that, if we can do, I guess if there's people that you meet who feel that way, have them come in. I mean, because if we're doing something wrong, or we're giving the wrong impression to people, we need to fix it. I mean, I think as a board, we're more than happy to admit that we have faults. Sometimes we take too long, I get that, but we're trying to protect the town, and to follow the ordinance.
It really depends on what type of business that is. It takes,
An auto garage, we've done 12 of them, it takes, a day or two.
takes a few meetings.
A pellet mill, that's gonna take a couple months, because we don't know what a pellet mill is. I mean, we need to understand what it is before we can talk about how we need to apply the ordinance. So the bigger the project, it is more difficult. But I think we try to be efficient.
I think that's also true if I read the papers and I see projects in Portland or Westbrook. The small projects take a short amount of time, and the big projects, even in the big city, and they know what they're doing and everything, and they're all professional, it still takes a long time.
Yeah.
Another thing, on your permits, they're getting kind of out of hand, I think.
Which
The
one?
kinds of permits to build a house.
Oh, to build a house, how much are they now to build?
It's getting just so close.
How much is a, building permit now?
25 cents a square foot.
So it's getting to be kind of costly. Where you can start.
Well, no, I'm sorry, Baldwin's 20 cents a foot.
20 cents a foot.
25 cents a foot.
I just put a big addition on my house, cost me
Well, I know electrical and all that. Soil test.
You have a building permit by the square footage. You need a septic system design, that's a fixed price, $265.
Is it that cheap?
$5. You need a hot and cold water plumbing permit and a growth permit. Well, no, you won't need a growth permit, you're not native in town. So those are the 3 permits, so you're looking at,
Brings me to the house.
1,000 square foot house would be $250, a septic system $265, a plumbing permit might go $120. Free.
Remember, when they put that pellet mill over in Sanford, the bill for permits was $30,000. Our bill here was, I think, around $3,000. So if anything, Marvin, we're low.
I would come and say that, people out here can afford that kind of money.
That's why we're hoping rich people move in.
I used to apologize to people when I said, I have to charge you $50 for a growth permit so we can count you. I learned that Gorham had an impact fee permit. $10,000, I don't apologize anymore.
Yeah, people pay it, so they love
Another
it.
thing on this hot and cold water,
The first,
what's this place down here?
What I'm saying that is the plumbing permit covers hot and cold water, but we don't cover, heating systems to have water.
This establishment down here, they don't have hot and cold water.
Across the street.
They went to Kelly's farm, got Kelly's now. Take a shower. What are you gonna do about that?
Anything else? Oh, we're still talking about that.
Why can't you?
I didn't say I can't, I said tonight,
How come
nothing.
you haven't?
You guys can talk about it tomorrow.
Huh?
He's not coming tomorrow, he's coming next
Oh,
Friday.
next Friday.
Okay.
That's okay, it's fine. Alright, so,
You'll be sorry next time.
anything else you wanna ask while we're here? Cause we could actually do a couple items of other business. I mean, I don't want to, I don't have to.
I just want one more question, specifically about the campground, and have you guys got anywhere with the next step, which was?
I actually asked to put on the next agenda. The road agreement's done, bonded, insured is done.
Okay.
I'd like to be on October 10th agenda.
Okay, I hadn't heard that, so I
gave you copies of that stuff too.
what's that?
2 days.
That's on the other items.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just wanna make sure that.
I was gonna ask, but it wasn't time to ask yet.
No, we weren't gonna close the meeting before today.
I mean, it's been since May, so that's why.
And like we talked about last time, I didn't have everything done and finished.
Right.
There's no sense butting heads going back. and
No,
forth.
I agree, I just, a lot of people in town think, oh, it's the planning board that's holding everything up, and we've been waiting for this one piece.
Are we gonna have a quorum the 10th?
I would imagine, yeah.
We'll talk about that.
Okay, sorry. I didn't
Once
mean
we
to
kind
skip
of
ahead,
close
but,
the public discussion kind of issue. You guys can all stay though. All right, so,
You bet, thanks for coming.
yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.
You can stay though, 'cause
You can stay for the adjournment.
So the other items that we were potentially gonna talk about, was a further discussion of the non-member secretary. I'm gonna table that.
Well,
The modifications of the ordinance for mass gathering.
Keep coming up,
I'm gonna table that. The possibility of a noise ordinance, I think we briefly discussed that, we're gonna have some homework to read this stuff.
Can we get,
I'll email it to everybody, yep. So I'm gonna table that. So that's all the items that were on the formal agenda. The last item was a request I received today, with regard to Nature's Wilderness, LLC. They have asked to be on the, October 10th, the next meeting, on the agenda. And I asked, Gary what the purpose was. I hadn't heard back yet. I heard indirectly, but I wanted to hear from Gary what the purpose was, because potentially, we would need, Lee J. Feldman, who's the consultant that we hired to work with us for Nature's Wilderness. Potentially, we need to have him present, if there's a full discussion of the permit. And we'd also need to make sure that there's going to be a quorum, because I believe that's during the Freiburg Fair. Is that right? It's over by that? Okay, good. So I'd like to hear from Gary as the representative of Nature's Wilderness, what you're thinking about doing if we can get you on the agenda.
Presenting to you the information on the road, the bond, everything's done, taken care of there. Finalized plans, safety plans, everything's done, traffic study's done, DEP is done. We want to present it to you. This is what we are.
So are we gonna get a new copy of everything, or are you giving us additional attachments to the existing CUP?
There will be some additional attachments because there was unanswered questions. We have the answers to them questions.
Okay,
All the final engineering's done, all the stormwater is done, everything is done on the plan, put on the plan, like the summer before.
okay.
So it's,
You're looking for a vote for an accepted application?
yes, and trying to get for a site walk.
Okay.
I can have any updates emailed to you so you can go over it, you can wrap your head around it before we come in blind on the 10th.
Do you wanna recuse yourself at this point?
Yes. Yes, you're right, thank you for reminding me.
All right.
Should I just say that you recuse yourself? Is there a reason? Should we state a reason?
No, voluntarily recuse yourself. I merely reminded them, I didn't.
I would, that's ancillary to the minutes.
So two comments. One, Lee J. Feldman's probably not available on the 10th. So that throws a little bit of a monkey wrench in it from our perspective.
Have you talked to him, or you just assumed that?
I talked to him.
Okay, I didn't know where you get your, I just talked to him, oh, no, I probably won't be there.
I emailed him as soon as I didn't talk to him, I corresponded.
Okay, alright.
I'm fine without Lee J. I mean, Lee J was just someone we was working with. I was just trying to keep everybody on board.
Yeah.
Ultimately, he was just here listening. He doesn't speak in or sway you guys. It's all about what we present to you guys anyway.
Right. Well, we as a board have to figure out whether we want him here, or not. That's the first issue. The second issue is whether we'll have a quorum. Are you going to be here on the 10th, do you know? Barring unforeseen circumstances?
Barring unforeseen circumstances, I will be here on.
Look before you say. Matthew, do you know?
There's no reason that I shouldn't be there.
Glenn? I don't have an answer from Matt Fricker or Sue. I should be here. So we most likely will have a quorum. So as a board, do we want Lee J. Feldman to be here? Or not?
I do.
And he hasn't said absolutely no. He said he has another commitment, but it may change. So I'm not saying
That would be my preference. Yeah. I don't know if it's a reason to not do it. We could certainly pinpoint what questions we have for him.
Yeah.
Oh, he's pretty good.
And he can watch the video too. I think it would be quicker if he was here. I think it would accelerate the process.
That's what it is, I think.
He could ask questions right there.
Well, I was this afternoon, he was pretty happy.
I would like to push it another 2 weeks. I'm not going to show.
Right. That's the other thing. So if the fact that he can listen to it on the video, does that help at all, Matt, for you?
I mean, otherwise it's gonna be the 24th, right?
Yes.
If we could get a commitment from him on the 24th, I mean, that would be good, but.
I would be away. I'll be away.
You'd be away, oh, okay.
I mean, that's just one person, but.
And there's an outside chance I'm not here on the 10th for personal reasons, but right now, that's not an issue.
I would volunteer to drop off Lee J. Feldman all the new information in a new packet so we could look it over. If he sees anything, he can contact you.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely we get him the information. I'm just trying to, he's kind of our guide in this, so.
All of the town laws and stuff.
Glenn, do you have a thought one way or the other? Okay. So, you're firm that you want him here? It's okay. You don't have to change your mind.
Well, I mean, no, I would like him here definitely, but I mean, you know, if we don't think that we're gonna have a full board on the 24th, then, you know, I think we need to talk about it. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So that's issue number one. So, I will let you know whether we're gonna have a quorum or not for sure. It sounds like we're going to. And we'll try to get Lee J here, but if he's not here, we'll still put you on the agenda.
We want Patrick to get that big.
So that's issue number one. Issue number two is that you said that you are going to rely on the existing application that provides some additional information. And I just want to comment, because you talked about preparation, that a lot has happened between the time that the permit was, the application was submitted and today, that things have happened. Additional information has been conveyed to us in meetings, and I'm hopeful that the material that you provide addresses that information. There are uses that have been conveyed in the interim that were never contemplated by the original permit. And so I think it's fair for us, for me, I'm only speaking to myself, not as a board. My expectation is that your new information will encompass all of the uses that have cropped up as potential uses since May.
And if are you talking about like the watercross races, UTV races?
Among others, yes.
Okay.
And I tried to figure out an easy way to convey it. And I went on the website, and there's a About Nature's Wilderness. I have a couple extra copies. Did I give away my copy? Does it say DAS on that?
Yeah.
On the front page? Oh, here it is. I got my copy. So I thought this did a good job of conveying some of those new uses that have been cropping up. If you go through page 4, it talks about an amphitheater, a horse stable, mountain trails, ATV, UTV use. On the next page, it talks about cycling, quadding trails, dirt bike trails, snowmobiling, tennis, cross-country skiing on page 6, snowmobiling on page 6, and then the quadding, part of the quadding trails I'd add in the minutes of the last meeting. There was the Northeast Watercross Championship information where I think you made a comment on their webpage that you were going to continue to try to bring that activity to the campground.
Okay, never said the campground.
That was the suggestion that I took from your.
What this website says and what's gone and what happened is irrelevant. What is on the new plans and what's going to happen and what the campground actually is gonna be is what should matter. Yes, we had UTV races on personal property. It's not a campground yet. It's not, we're not gonna have UTV races there.
Okay, so what I'm trying to convey is.
What I'm asking to have there is what's on the plan.
And what I'm trying to convey is if these items are not part of the permit, what I believe the board would do is to prohibit them from occurring on the parcel. So, I offer this up as, I think as fair notice that if these are things that want to be accomplished on the property, that they need to be in the application. If they're not, they'll be specifically prohibited, I think, by the board.
Right, the quadding trail is gonna stay for people that camp, are gonna be able to take the quads around the property. Amphitheater isn't shown anywhere on the plans or on the CUP, it's not gonna be there.
So when you say quadding trails, we're gonna want you to identify where motorized vehicles are allowed on the property, at least from my perspective, because there's a difference between utilizing the internal structure of the camp to move from one place to another and going out in the 800+ acres and using that trail system. Those are two fundamentally different uses from my perspective.
I'll have to talk about, argue that one.
Okay, so I'm just telling you my perspective. You said you wanted to be prepared, so
No,
I'm just giving you a heads up that
And I
these are the
appreciate
things
that,
we're
but
thinking
we'll
about.
talk about that. If the ATVs that come to the campground, we don't charge them. If they wanna get around the campground on the ATV, they can. If they're gonna stay on our property, I don't see why they can't. You need to explain to me why, and I'm fine with that.
In my opinion, there is a difference between utilizing the internal campground system to move from point A to point B and off-road riding on a UTV. There's two fundamentally different uses there. One's an off-road riding use, and the other is utilizing established trails, and we already talked about at a very minimal speed, whereas the trail system may or may not be at a minimal speed. So I'm just giving you a heads up that these are some of the things that I've been thinking about in the months since May that have cropped up.
I have the quad trails mapped up, you can see where they're at, so I do have that to present to you.
And so if that's a use you want to do, we're going to need to address that as a use. Also, I think a critical part of this is that it's very clear to me that the entire 800+ acres is part of the project, and so all 800+ acres would need to be under the permit. I know you talked about 157.
As a project site.
Right, but the entirety of the property
The map along, yes.
will need to be subject to the permit, and I think it's gonna be important to understand what those boundaries are. Because I think some things will have to happen at the boundaries if you're having people move on the 800+ acres, so. I thought this was the best way to convey the fact that there have been additional uses put on the table, but if they're not gonna be done, that's fine, but I just wanted to give you a heads up because you talked about preparation. There was a question?
Yeah, if I could make a suggestion, you could make it a conditional use that no activities be advertised that were not permitted in the conditional use permit. It would be a violation of the conditional use permit to advertise activities that aren't permitted.
Yeah, we've never had that issue before, but if in fact there's a disconnect as the application comes forward, we probably want to have that discussion.
I brought this up with Gary about 10 days ago, that his website did not match his application.
I was not aware of that.
He said, no, well, this was at a selectmen's meeting, and, you know, because I saw the same thing too, because I just been looking at the house that is not part of the plan. It's a private residence, according to Gary in the plan. It was being advertised as a rental unit, however many bathrooms and bedrooms and so forth. And they just, you know, like, spend $100, $200, whatever it is, and get somebody to clean up your website. And, you know, it's only been 10 days, so.
I'm not trying to be argumentative or upset anybody, but what does the website have to do with the ballroom land use ordinance? If Scott wants to spew garbage or say the truth, what does that have to do with our actual CUP
We prefer
application?
people to tell the truth.
So,
Is that in the ordinance?
so, one thing that we have to,
I know, I'm being sarcastic.
Apologize for that one.
one thing that we have to take into consideration is, our, assessment of whether or not the rules will be followed, and if not, whether or not additional safeguards have to be put into place. And so, if we believe that the applicant's been untruthful to us, then we may need to have additional safeguards in place, as part of the permit. And those can be performance bonds, those can be other things, but the truthfulness of the applicant is something that we consider. And so when you're conveying one thing as a representative of the campground, and other representatives of the campground are conveying something else, I think we have to take that into consideration. And so, I understand what you're saying, that this is not an official document that's being submitted to the town, but by the same token, it is being put out there by as far as I know, the owner of the establishment. And so I have to consider the disconnect between what you're putting forth in an informal application and what's being said and done outside of that is public. I think that's where the rubber hits the road on this truthfulness, credibility issue. If you submit an application, we're gonna consider that application, but we may wanna say, you know, other information has said that there will be horse stables. Now, is there gonna be I'm not asking the question, but if you say there's no horse stables, then we will probably need to put into the application, there is no horse stables. Same with the amphitheater.
There are no horse stables, so answering the question, there are no horse stables.
I understand that, and the amphitheater is the same thing.
No amphitheater.
So that takes away large gathering, so there won't, you know, the amphitheater would be a place of large gathering. So the question I think we would ask is, will there be large gatherings in a single place like an amphitheater? I don't know the answer to that, but those are considerations, and those are important considerations, because if the campground is gonna bring 1,000 people to its location for an event, we have to consider parking, we have to consider traffic.
We have a traffic study.
The traffic study does not address a 1,000-person event, I don't believe it.
No, it does the campground.
Right, so if you're going to have an event with a large population, that needs to be addressed as part of the traffic study, because that involves different things than a campground would involve. So, you know, if you're having an event, you have a start and a stop time, and people will be exiting and coming in right around the same time. If anybody's ever been to an event, you know how hard it is to get out of that event. And so that may completely change the traffic element to the project. Same with parking. Where are you gonna park if you have 1,000 people? That's something we'll need to talk about extensively, if in fact that's part of your application. If it's not, then we'll probably put a prohibition on that, because that's not something that that's not something that's been put in front of us, but it is something that has been suggested may happen. And so if it hasn't been put in front of us, we're probably going to put a restriction on it. I'm speaking as myself, not as you know, the board hasn't spoken on that as a unit, but that's where I see this going. And I'm doing this not because I'm trying to be negative, I just want us to understand what being prepared looks like from my perspective. Being prepared means these are some of the issues that have come up that I want you to be prepared on. That, I mean,
That sounds good.
so, yeah, so, look, I'm excited to see what you got, because we've been waiting around for it. I think we're gonna talk about the bond. I'd like to understand the town's reasoning for the way it went. But, you know, we'll have that discussion when it's presented. Hey, you guys have anything else that?
Nothing else.
Anybody, I mean, anything you want us to talk about, or? Okay. So we'll put one of these with the minutes.
We're scanning already, you want?
I'll scan, you take that.
You want me to scan this one?
Yeah. No, I'll scan, I'll send you out.
I move you adjourn.
I always like to ask before we leave, Selectmen, is there anything else we can accomplish that you need us to accomplish?
I think we've got a lot of information.
CEO, is there anything you need us to accomplish before we're done?
Fine this evening.
Okay. Is there anything that you guys need us to talk about that we haven't talked about already?
No,
Always
thank
come
you.
back next time.
You lead a fine meeting, Dave, thank you very much.
No, you do a good job. I already seconded it, at least in that.
All those in favor? All right, we're done. Thank you.